guys, I'm gonna do a review now on the Halo graphic novel. Yes, I'm gonna do a Halo book. Alright. As you know, I'm not much of a fan of the Halo games anymore. I mean, I still like Halo Wars, because I've played games like that, like StarCraft, and I do like, the first 3 Halo games. The ODST and Reach, it's the same thing over again. I'm sorry, diehard Halo fans. But anyway, let's move on to the book itself. Now, this was the first, I believe it was the first book that Marvel did for the Halo comic book series. I have yet to read Halo Helljumper and Halo Bloodlines, which I actually do want to read because I heard they're good. Oh, and Halo Uprising. I want to get those books. But, yeah. This is basically, 4 stories. 4 stories that base around, the first one is called The Last Voyage of the Infinite Scorer. I think I'm saying that right. This one is done by Lee Hammock and artwork by Simon Beasley. Now, as you all know, I'm not a fan of Simon Beasley's artwork. I said that during when I was reading when I was showing the Judge Dredd Batman crossover book I got, and it had Simon Beasley's artwork in there. And I told you why I don't like it, because sometimes it looks really gritty and all over the place, and just really not fun to look at. But in here, the first story is actually the best. The Last Voyage of the Infinite Succor, Infinite Succor, I'll go with that, is actually probably the best story in here. What they should have done is done a whole, this should have been the whole book, rather than 4 stories. Because in here, this is really good. This basically talks about the Covenant, the Covenant's re-encounter with the Flood. This is the Elite's first encounter with the Flood. There's a cameo of Master Chief in here, but that's only brief, and that's the only cameo of Master Chief we get to see. But yeah, that was I thought this was really good. This is a really fun story, a really cool one too. It talks about the commander we see in Halo 2, the one with the half a jaw, that is basically the Arbiter's handler. He's in here and explains how he survived the Flood and how he was like probably the only survivor. If I remember, he was the only survivor. But in here, Beasley's artwork really is it looks really good. It really has evolved greatly since the last time I've seen it. Because in here, it's beautifully detailed in here of this story. It's just amazing. The battle with the Flood, their whole battle with the Flood was just awesome. The monsters look great. The writing's just really cool as well. Now, I don't know much about what Lee Hammock's done, but good on you, man. This was a really good story. It felt a lot like Aliens at some point, but it kind of was alright. I forgave it for that. Next up is Armor Testing by Jay Faerber. I can't pronounce that last name. Ed Lee and Andrew Robinson. Yeah, this was terrible. This story was just terrible. All it is basically a woman testing out the new Halo armor, the new Mjolnir armor that Master Chief is gonna get. Master Chief, again, is not in here. He doesn't even make a cameo, they just mention him. And the artwork isn't terrible. At some point, the facial work is just terrible. I really don't like the facial work, but the artwork on the armor and the ODST soldiers is really cool. I really like how it was detailed, but the facial work just really throws me off. But yeah, that one was really bad too. Next up is the third story is Breaking Quarantine, which is actually the shortest story, I believe. And there's no dialogue. Just artwork. This is basically a story about the Sergeant Major. And then basically his encounter with the Flood. This is written and drawn by, well, not really written, it's all artwork by Tatsumo Nikai. I hope I'm saying that right. He's from Japan. This was bad as well. I mean, the artwork is really detailed and really beautiful to look at, but at some points there's no dialogue. I don't mind that there's no dialogue. You can do a whole story with no dialogue. I mean, look at this Fantastic Four number 588. That had hardly any dialogue. But in here, it's just so confusing. Like, some points it just gets really confusing with the artwork. I mean, like I said, it's really beautiful to look at, but yeah, it's just not that... The story just goes everywhere, and at the end of it, I'm like, the hell? It's like, what the hell with the ending? And finally is Second Sunrise over New Mombasa. Written by Brett Lewis and art by Morbius. Okay. This one basically takes place right between Halo 2 and 3. And before Halo ODST. This is basically the siege of New Mombasa. When the Covenant attacked. Yeah, the artwork here is just terrible. In my opinion, it's just terrible. It looks really cartoony at some points. It just looks really bad. It looks like an Archie. At some points, it looks like Archie. It looks like an Archie comic artwork. And, I mean, sometimes it's really good. It looks really interesting, but other times it just looks terrible. The story, like I said, is basically about, like, the siege of New Mombasa, and it's told through a writer who basically is forced to do propaganda work. But yeah, the writing's really good. It's just that artwork is just so god-awful. Yeah, but the other thing in here is the art gallery, which the art gallery is really cool too. I wish I could find pictures of these and put them on my wall, because a lot of this artwork is just really fantastic to look at. There's one by Satomi Nahai, the guy I told you about who did the Sergeant Johnson story, of a flood-infected arbiter that just looks fantastic. There's some good ones, some good independent artists. The art gallery is really cool to look at. I will admit that it's really good. Because I'd really suggest. But all in all, I got this book actually. I didn't buy this book. I'm actually borrowing it from my little cousin. I found this book and he told me I could. I asked if I could borrow it, and he said I was done. He said he liked it, but you know, this was not a good book at all. I mean, it's okay. The first story. This is a rental. This is a borrow it kind of book. This is if you're I'd say get it if you're like the most diehard Halo fan. But if you're a Halo fan who likes the mythos, but because this is not worth this is not worth 25 or 26 bucks, because the price on here is $24.99, and I think I wouldn't really disappointed if I bought this book, because this was not a good. This was just okay. I'd say if the first story is actually the art gallery and the first story, the first story and the art gallery are the best. That's the best that comes out. The other three stories are shit. So you know, it's just yeah, it's just not that good. Like I said, just borrow it and read the first story, because the first story is the best. I mean, I really wish they just made a whole graphic novel on just the first story, because it's the biggest story and it's the best. So, yeah, like I said, borrow this book unless you're like, you gotta have every Halo book, because this is not worth $26. Not in the least. So, yeah, my final rating, it comes down to 2.5 out of 5. I'm just gonna give that rating, and I hope you guys enjoy the new rating I'm giving out, because I'm no longer putting my rating on the sidebar below. I think that's kind of lame. I'm starting to think that's kind of lame of just putting my rating right there, because it just feels like I just kind of half-assed at the last second. So I'm actually going to say it, give out my reviews now on the screen as well. So my rating on this comes to 2.5 out of 5, and that's being generous just for the art gallery and the first story. So I hope you all enjoyed this review, and I'll see you next time.